Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. It is November 13th, 2025. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello.
Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
Mr. John Lindemann.
Great to be here, James.
You almost made me say Longindaman after the conversation we had off the air. You almost made me say Longindaman. I want you to understand how perilously close I was to saying Longindaman.
Well, you know, he had quite the appearance on Connectivity from what I hear. Yeah.
According to Gemini, he absolutely fucking balled out.
He did.
Connectivity.
He did.
But when I say Longindaman balled out, I mean a felony exposure charge. This is episode 952, and I've got some business to handle before we get to business. We are going to be doing a retroactive going into the holiday season. This helps us out because we can basically record that episode, put it in the can, and release it, and take a week off. I know we are all frequently just not available during that time of year, at least for some portion of it. I know I'm going to be gone for a while during that time frame. So it gives us the opportunity to put something away that y'all can listen to, and we can keep the podcast feed active while you're trying to not spend time with your family and friends, which I totally understand. We don't really have a theme in mind for this. The theme I wanted to go with was James's display of tyranny and general pathos towards everyone else. I've been told that is not necessarily the right theme for the holiday season. And I don't necessarily agree, but I'm willing to hear other options. So, what I am asking, and we're gonna have a very tight window on this because we gotta fucking get our ass into gear here if we want to record this thing before the holidays so we can put it in the can. We need a recommendation for you, not necessarily for a game. You could be for like, here's some themes you guys could go with. Here's some games that you might want to try, like whatever. Shoot them our way. It's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. That's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. We need them by Thursday. That's right. I said Thursday. That's like 4 days after it's possible you could be hearing this. That's the 20th. Why do we need them by then? Because we've got to fucking put this thing together, play this game, and record the podcast. So there ain't time to screw around. If you are listening right now and have an idea, stop the show and send the email right now to rfn at NintendoWorldReport.com. There will be no extensions on this deadline. We need to get your answers in so that I can disregard them and embrace my inner tyrant and declare that we are all going to be playing win back. Because that's the option that I'm looking at right now. We're all in back for win back if you guys don't send us something better. So, that's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. Send them right fucking now. Do it.
I don't know.
Do it.
Sounds pretty good.
Do it. Win back sounds pretty good.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't think I played it back in the day.
I did play it one time. It's very curious. I was trying to think of like what would be the worst thing I could make y'all play on the N64 for the Switch. The Switch online service. Winback isn't it? Winback's not even close to it. I'm sure there's something ghastly on there.
You got your Iggy's Wrecking Balls, haven't you? I don't know. It was that. I mean, the name, it makes it sound terrible. I don't really know if it is actually
fine.
that bad.
I actually had it. It's fine. But I'm just laughing at the idea of us trying to get through an entire episode with the phrase Iggy's Wrecking Balls and it just not devolve into just absolute fucking idiocy. Harvest Moon 64 retroactive is going to be absolutely lit, y'all. What can I say?
Sure.
I don't know. The worst thing, the worst thing on here is probably something like, I don't know. Like Pokemon Stadium 2 would be pretty dire to play without your own Pokemon, just using rentals. That would be pretty rough. We're not actually waiting for anything on the N64 Classic service, right? We have everything that they've announced.
Yeah, I mean, there's those games that, again, the sort of online sleuths detected may well be in the pipeline based on, the little trailer that they made for the enhanced functionality alongside the Switch 2, which suggested that Forsaken 64 could happen, and then it did.
Oh, yeah.
And so on that basis, there's things that we think are likely, including, the original Super Smash Brothers and DK64 and Glover, I think, and maybe something else. But I don't know that there's anything actually official on the books at the moment.
Forsaken would be a good one for me to just be like, no, I'm a tyrant. Like, I told you I'm a tyrant, and now I am living that dream. GameCube's actually pretty solid. Like every single one on GameCube is a valid choice, except for obviously Luigi's Mansion, because we just did it a million years ago and Greg just played it. It has been used. I don't know what sort of seal has to be broken for us to cover a game for retroactive again. retroactive.
Yeah, the double, how could you justify it? I don't know. Just like the year is, 2115 and we're just too bloody old to stop.
We've done every other game.
Us. Yeah.
I've made y'all do a retroactive on Kururin. Things we have run out of content. It's time to do Luigi's Mansion again for the third time. Oh, there it is. There. All right, here's the threat option. Are y'all ready? I'm going to make you fuckers play Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red Rescue Team.
What?
Look forward to 800 completely randomly generated stages that result in nothing resembling fun. Put your things in.
This is somewhat reminiscent of the guy taking himself hostage in Blazing Saddles, based on how much you enjoyed the DS sequel.
But see, I'm feeling a bad flu coming on the recording day, and I just won't be around to record on it. What a shame. What a shame. I'm surprised we never did Minish Cap. We really haven't done much in the GBA space. Historically. Because they haven't really been available. We did.
Yeah, we obviously, once you got to Wii U Virtual Console, you had some opportunities there, and and now you've got the expansion pack as well. But
we did Mario
just
Tennis.
So many. It's just obviously we had finally with Klonoa and the Mr. Driller 2.
Yeah,
I think it was some actual third-party GBA games. It'd be really nice if we could get more of those, because obviously, whether we've done them for retroactive or not, there is the kind of feeling of certain first-party games, and it's kind of well-travelled stuff, right? Whereas some of the other things. But the problem, as we've said many times with this sort of thing, is it's become too sort of enticing, seemingly, for publishers to just do it themselves, to publish collections, right? It's like, yeah, guess what? Harmony of Dissonance and stuff like that was on Wii U Virtual Console. Now it's got its own bespoke collection, the Advance collection, from Konami directly. So that's the kind of difference we've seen. But, if it's something that's in a collection that's readily available and reasonably priced, that shouldn't disqualify anything.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's in a collection that's $60, that's going to be a problem. John, I know Iggy's Wrecking Balls would devolve into just puerile giggling every time we try to say the game.
I wonder if we'd get past the very important semantic question of whether Iggy is wrecking balls or his balls do the wrecking. That's what I don't... has this been satisfactorily answered?
Well, so the challenge is Iggy is a ball. But there is an explicit pluralization, which means that this ball possesses ball, plural, balls. So I think the answer is neither. I think the answer is he owns other balls, which feels morally untenable. But Iggy's Wrecking Balls is going to be a problem for just the purileness of it. John, F-Zero Climax, like 30% as bad as Iggy's Wrecking Balls in terms of giggling? 40%, where are we at?
Probably less places you can go with the joke with F-Zero Climax.
There's definitely... But if you can combine it with Captain Falcon voice lines from Smash Brothers, that gets you further. Like there's some...
Yeah. There's potential
like
there.
if you could do your show me your moves impression while making references to F-Zero Climax, there's some room to work there. But you do have to put more work in than just saying Iggy's Wrecking Balls with a funny voice and getting the chuckle line.
Well, yeah, and you could have a lot of balls related puns and stuff like that.
Balls relate. I'm behind to write that down. This is important preservation that I.
It's
balls is balls related hyphenated?
Yeah, balls related.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean these are just pearls of wisdom that I offer.
Former reviews editor John Lindemann / site director, making sure I understand that it's balls related puns.
Yeah, I mean my name used to be up on the masthead, James. So you know.
Balls related puns. Colon a masthead.
Puns. There's always, that's the thing. If you look for them, they're there.
Comma, my name used to be on the masthead, James. You laugh. I've written this all down.
Hey, yep.
Episode 952, balls related puns, comma, my name used to be on the masthead, James.
Hey man, you call NWR and you call headquarters and I used to pick up the phone.
What the fuck would I even do?
Site director John Lindemann, at your service. Lon Gindeman, keep it down back there.
Did you just answer, I need pictures of Spider-Man? Oh, wait, that's the wrong outlet. I'm trying to imagine what I would even fucking do for the image for episode 952, balls related puns, common. My name used to be on the masthead, James.
So are you saying I'm like J. Jonah Gindeman? Is that what you're saying?
J. Jonah, that's what the J in Gindeman stands for, yeah. Gindeman, Jonah Gindeman, yes. Jesus fucking Christ. We haven't even started the show yet. This is a disaster.
You've started something. You've clearly started something off here.
A movement.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yes, send them. RFN and Nintendo World Report. What are you sending? Retroactive ideas.
Okay, all right. We're still talking about retroactive? All right.
No, but I'm trying to get us back there. Retroactive ideas, send them, please. You've got until the 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern, at which point we will be recording and the door will close. If I get it at 9:01 p.m. Eastern, get effed. I don't care. I'm not reading it. I will delete the email. I won't even open it. I'm just going to delete it on the spot. So, send it. RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. Now we're going to do actual email because we need to do that too. Email, questions, comments, thoughts, ideas, games, rhetorical devices that you've put into text form, long, weird prose you've written about people that don't exist that end in a question, roughly 432 words into the content of the email. Send them, preferably less of the last one, though. That was weird. To RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. That's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. You are probably thinking to yourself, but James, that's the same email address you asked for retroactive ideas. It is. We've only got one, and it's RFN at NintendoWorldReport.com. Use it. There. That's the hard sell. I'm a businessman. John, read the first email.
Well, let me go over to the chat.
His name used to be on the masthead.
I didn't realize you had posted them in. This is what happens when you, when you distract
when I say, hey, I'm going to put them in the chat and then put them in the chat.
Yeah, but that was like an hour ago.
Yeah, it was an hour ago, right?
It was like 22 minutes ago.
All right, is this Reg McFly?
It only feels like an hour.
All right, dear
Yes,
RFN,
this is Reg McFly.
I'm aware that a number of you are at various stages in terms of connecting physical games. With Guillaume wisely using his local library, as the husband of a librarian, please promote using your local library.
Sure.
However, I am wondering if you get to set points in your collections, do you ever think that's me, or have you done that already? For context, my favorite, spelled with an O, with an OU, by the way, collection is the one worth the least money, the Wii. I love my collection, and it's one of the ones I engage with regularly. Have you ever thought you were done with a system or that you had what you needed? Love you as always. Real talk, as I played a Vita in the bath last week in a low mood. It was like Hotline Miami.
Why do y'all need to tell us this?
Yeah, I mean, I respect it. You know?
Hey, Arfen, last week he doesn't necessarily say he was naked. Maybe he was fully clothed.
Maybe he was fully clothed, but
he was in the bath in a suit.
I like to think he was buck naked. Just for the...
hold on.
Jeans shorts.
Hold on. I like to think he was buck naked, my name used to be on the Masthead, James.
Hey, that's sort of camaraderie, that Vita bath camaraderie.
That Vita bath camaraderie, my name used to be on the Masthead, James.
So I still get my games from the library, but not nearly as much as before. Like, it was really like the perfect situation before, where it was on my way to the subway, basically. Like, I had my library there, and it was like they had tons of games. They must have had some sort of like activist game purchaser over there who was ordering like 7 copies of the latest Shantae game on Wii U. It was it was funny. Nuts. I don't understand what was wrong with their ordering, the people who was ordering these games, but yeah. So that just led to me being able to sample a lot of stuff without actually having to buy it. But now I've moved to the suburbs, and I have to go out of my way to go to the local library, and the collection kind of sucks. And it did take like 3 months before I could even get Bananza. So that's kind of sad. As for like my collection that defines me, I'm not really. I think I used to be like that with DVDs. I've spoken about this before, but yeah, like who collects DVDs anymore? I got rid of most of my collection. That probably wouldn't run all that well in a freaking Xbox anyway, as I've discovered kind of recently. As I did keep a few, like, I don't know, like Ghost in the Shell series and stuff like that. Some anime that I paid too much for originally for me to just part with it casually. But actually trying to run them on something that plays discs today is difficult and doesn't always work. So it's kind of I don't know. It's kind of the same for games. Like, I don't necessarily keep my old systems hooked up, so it kind of becomes at that point easier to just cull the collection a whole lot.
I never... Well, that's not true. I used to collect things I thought were interesting. Not necessarily like I want to have a collection of all the interesting shit in the world. But just I would get a wild hair up my ass to go acquire some fuck-ass weird game and just decide, like, I need to have this now. I need to be in possession of this nonsensical piece of software that no one should ever possibly own.
Would you actually seek it out, or would it just be an opportunity purchase?
I would actively go hunt that game down. And I may spend a while doing it. I may spend time evaluating my options and ending up with it, but then I end up with a copy of Auto Modelista. And it's like, what? Why? Why did I decide I needed Auto Modelista? I don't know, but at some point my brain said, you know what you need? You need Auto Modelista. And I'm sure this was tied into like some really dark time for games being available on Nintendo systems. Like, I'm sure there's a connection there. Because obviously if I have games coming out that I'm playing, I'm less likely to go like, well, I guess I gotta go get Tube Slider. But there is a part of me that's really fucking sick in the head and needs to acquire weird shit. And so a lot of times that weird stuff is not digitally available now. Like you just can't get it. There's not a digital release of this stuff. And so I might sometimes still get this weird urge to be like, do I need to own Drake of the 99 Dragons? And the answer is no. It's definitively no. And like usually I beat that urge back. And as I've gotten older, I'm much better equipped to beat that urge back and be like, no, I don't need Drake of the 99 Dragons. Drake of the 99 Dragons is a dog shit game. But there's that part of my brain that's like, yeah, but it could be your dog shit game. And I'm like, you're right. It could be. Fuck off. I don't need to deal with this. When I was younger and weirdly had less disposable income, but also had less of an active, like, social life, for lack of a better word, I would spend money on just fucking weird software. And I would just buy it and own it, and I'd play it, and I'd talk about it on the show, and I'd make you guys have to listen to James talks about Deception 4, the game where you're an anime girl who's the daughter of the devil setting traps to kill people in a castle, but also something weirdly sexualized about it that doesn't feel right. But like that part of me I have better control over now. I have a very robust collection of physical games, but I really haven't added to it in probably getting close to a decade. When I got my Xbox One? Yeah. No, I got Xbox One X. Yeah, there it is. I got a few games for it. And then when I got my Series X, I don't think a physical game has ever gone into the Series X. And then, like, I got a few Wii U games. I got a bunch of Wii U games physical, insofar as one can have a bunch of Wii U games, because that in and of itself is kind of a misnomer. But I think I own like 5 physical Switch games, and almost all of them it was like on a fire sale during Black Friday. I haven't bought a physical game probably 2017, 2018. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's not true. I've bought some games that are like, again, fucking weird ass thing I got a copy of just for fun's sake. I bought a copy of Excite Bots because I ran into it. But yeah, like I'm through that now. Like I actually really like the collection of stuff I have. And I've got it well documented, and I understand what's there, and it's got some material value, it's got some emotional value, it's got a decent amount of cash value, but I don't really do that much with it. It just kind of hangs out, and every so often when I've got somebody over, they're like, holy shit, what is this? And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. That's a weird-ass game if you want to play it. Have fun. But usually they're just like, oh, you got Smash? And I'm like, bro, I've got so many different fucking Smash Brothers, like, which Smash do you want? I've got it. Just pick one. Pick a Smash. Doesn't matter what Smash. It's here. We'll figure it out. And it ultimately always ends up being the one on Switch. It's like, what's the one that's got the most characters in it? Like, all right, here, Switch controller. We're done. Let's just do this. So yeah, I don't know. I could probably get rid of my collection and not feel too bad about it. But there is something nice about just having it. Like just going through it every so often, going, what weird shit's in here? And perusing it more for fun than for anything else. John, you have the weirdest answer here. Because you've gone through it.
Well, I mean, geez, like, so, like, in terms of collections, I mean, like, the last physical game, actually, I can't say the last physical game I bought was Breath of the Wild. The last physical game I actually bought was, like, kind of the same as you. Like, I'll buy weird things off of eBay. Like, I bought, like, the PAL version of Day of Crisis. But then I realized that I couldn't play it on anything I had. So that was pretty stupid. It wasn't a lot of money though. It was like $30 or something.
Your international traveling haze.
Yeah. Well, no, this was just me at home.
But when you bought Haze and it was listed, it was coming from Central America.
I thought you were saying I was in international traveling Haze, and I'm like, that's completely valid.
No.
Yeah, Haze,
literally the game Haze.
Yeah, Haze. Yeah, and there's
the Beehive game.
There's just certain things that had to have that nectar. And the thing is, you couldn't find that. You couldn't find it anywhere. I wonder if it's on. I wonder if it's on PlayStation Plus streaming, like premium.
That'd be really funny.
I don't think it is though. That's the whole thing. There's no reason why I would buy it physical if I could get it some other way. But that's just like putting everything aside about like why would you ever buy Haze? Total as a valid question. But again, I was curious. I wanted to have an informed opinion for the thousands of people that will be asking for my opinion on Haze.
It's a David Doak game. How can you not want to play?
David Doak wants to smoke.
From Ubisoft.
Yeah. Ubisoft, who they halted their trading. Ubisoft.
Yeah, they did.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason they have stated internally to their own employees is they needed more time to prepare their numbers for this fiscal half.
Okay, cooking the books.
Yeah, like that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Your numbers should be ready on time.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah, they really should be.
That's like fire your chief financial officer for fucking that shit up. Up.
And it's not like they don't know when the dates are when they have to deliver that stuff.
No. And you deliver them like a month after quarter close, so you have 30 days to get everything in order.
Yep.
And you should be doing it all the time anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's how you know you're running a healthy business.
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
unless you're not, and you just need time to write up an excuse.
Yeah. So in terms of collections, I don't know if I have one definitive collection anymore. There's just so much stuff out there attached to my Xbox account, my PlayStation account, my Steam account. There's just so much stuff. Probably one of my older collections where there was actually there's kind of a beginning and a finite end to it. Probably like my GameCube collection or something like that, I would say, because I would say my GameCube collection probably has my coolest games. I would say that I'm like the most proud of, right? Like it has like, I think I have Fire Emblem, which is I think worth a lot of money now. Path of Radiance.
Yeah.
Path of Radiance. The Wii one is even crazier money.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, but it's probably like the collection that I'm most proud of, just because I just really like the GameCube and I just thought it's kind of silly, but I thought the game boxes always looked pretty cool.
I think it's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think it just had a lot of like real classic games to me, like a lot of series that were just first introduced there. It was really cool. So it's probably my collection. Would I say that collection is like most quote unquote me? I don't know, but it's the one I like the most. Like I just think at this point there's just so much content out there these days that you can't really pick any one collection of things and have that as definitive. It's just too much.
My DS one is probably the one because the DS had so much weird shit on it.
Yeah, it did have. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in my DS collection too. Yeah. Yeah, you had to buy physical, and there's stuff like Bangai Spirits and stuff like that. You just they're just so off the wall, right?
I've got like 19 DS games from Capcom.
Yeah,
and it's not because they put out 19 good DS games. It's because I bought a lot of DS games from Capcom.
Yeah,
and you end up with like that Beautiful Joe game, which has DS in its title. It just weird, fucking odd shit that they put out on there, and DS is a great system for that.
Yeah, and also the best thing about the DS is that from a physical standpoint, it doesn't take up a lot of room.
No.
Like those boxes are small.
I've got like 60 games on one shelf. Now it's an absolute like fucking Jenga tower of games in there. If you try to take one out, the whole thing's gonna collapse. But they are in there. Oh, that's a good one. Greg, what about you?
Sure, yeah, obviously things have evolved over the years a lot. Of course, being somebody that, my early days playing video games, not very early, we had a PAL NES, but, I was very, very young for that. I do remember it, but, it's kind of more engaged and kind of informed when we got to the next generation, where we was imported Super Famicom, and then that went on, through N64 and GameCube. But yeah, especially importing those cartridge games in the early days, we didn't have that many, right? So
right.
It's like the collections you have from back then were small, and so it's never really been a thing of like, oh, I want to have this huge number of games, I want to collect as much as I can, or I want complete sets of this, that, or the other. It just, was so kind of completely impossible until, you get to be an adult, and then at that point it's just not really something that appeals to you necessarily. I think the closest thing I've got to like a complete collection of anything would probably be treasure games on Nintendo hardware. But I don't have, there's at least one thing I know I don't have, and I think it's a Tiny Toons game for the GBA that came out only in Europe and Japan or something. Like
what?
There is definitely something I'm missing, and I have no particular desire to fill that in, you know what I mean? Like, or to like be really kind of, precise or technical about it. And so, well, we really need to have both versions of Geist Crusher for 3DS, to qualify or anything. Like, I'm fine with what I've got. But definitely there are cases like that where it's like, if there's some kind of connections to other things or whatever, you might be more willing to get stuff. Definitely, once you get into the age of online retailing and importing got cheaper, like it became easier to think, there's stuff, that I would like to kind of, go back and get, it's just some of it's just the fact that you can, having really not been able to do that for a long time. So definitely I'd say DS era, I got a lot of stuff relatively, just I guess being the right age. As James already said, it's before digital became any kind of an alternative or an option, which, generally, like I said, when you get to the digital era, I've definitely availed myself of that quite a lot because I like the convenience of it, especially just for, particular kinds of games, the ones that you might go back to for like smaller play sessions over a length of time rather than just the ones that you've just, you run through that mainline kind of campaign or whatever, single player mode, whatever, and then you're kind of done with it. Like those, I'd be more willing to consider physical, where that's been a better price. And of course, over here now with the Switch 2 era, Nintendo finally kind of made the jump to say that, physical games are going to have a higher recommended retail price than the digital ones. But even before that, you had the vouchers, right, with Switch for first party stuff. So we've been on this trajectory for a long time, and, I'm going to keep on with it. So yeah, I didn't necessarily have huge numbers of Switch physical games. There were definitely some where it's just like, oh, that's a really crazy good deal. Like, stuff like, Mario and Rabbids, like, got really cheap. Like, didn't it, but ahead of other things. And so, sometimes they're just a relatively recent one, but also Ubisoft, Prince of Persia, the Lost Crown, right? Like that got very cheap physically, quickly. So it's like, all right, I'll have it. But relative to the enormity of the amount of Switch games that I, have played in that generation, it's a small slice, so that's kind of the direction it's gone inevitably.
I think my last physical game is also an Ubisoft game. It's that Starlink kit that had all the models in it that I got for $4.
Yeah, I got the Starlink for very, very cheap. Yeah, it's got like the R-Wing, right, with it.
Yeah,
and,
it's got to go.
Yeah, oh no, exactly. I mean, it just, especially because it took up more shelf space, that was very much like, get this shit off my shelf, as Johnny. I think he was talking about Spyborgs at the time, but it's
Spyborgs!
It's an immortal phrase. It can always be deployed for such things. But yeah, I mean, so it becomes less and less of a thing, but in terms of, they have bid systems that are a bit like John, where there's just something about them that makes it more likely to, if you, for some reason, you see something, I'd be more likely to snap it up, even if it is in no way part of some larger collection, some larger theme of things that you've got. Just like Japanese GameCube games for me, what have always been, I've mentioned plenty of times, I would imagine.
And they also take up so little space. They
are so compact. The packaging is really nice, and it's just kind of like, and I very much enjoyed, the GameCube, but again, didn't necessarily have, it was an era where importing was cheaper, online retail and all that, and being older and money to spend, like all those things were in its favour, but didn't necessarily have all the time in the world to be playing GameCube games. So there's a lot of stuff that just kind of passed me by. It was like, oh yeah, I would have liked to have that, and then you didn't, right? And years later, when it is like I said, that sort of form factor that's so small and kind of cute and all that, I was more apt to go back and pick things up for that system than maybe for like N64 games. By contrast, some of it's because N64 didn't play as nice with latter televisions, that I had, because with GameCube I had the component cables. Whereas, like, N64, it never could output that way. I mean, the RGB SCART for that, which was, as good as you could get at the time. But once you went to, like, LCD TVs, they would have a SCART connector on the back, but it would just look shit through it because it wasn't properly upscaled. So those kinds of factors kind of went in favour. So things like I talked about on the show over the years, like Mr. Driller Drill Land, I went back and got that for GameCube. The Kuririn Squash, I want to say, the GameCube Kuririn game, just stuff that I heard about, I would have read about on planetgamecube.com, the website, that is our progenitor here on this podcast. Things, because there was lots of import coverage. It was one of the things that attracted me, to be a very frequent visitor of the site. Was the very robust import coverage of the GBA launch. Because that was a good few months before it launched elsewhere in the world, wasn't it? It was like February of 2001 versus June. And they just went on with GameCube, all those reviews of Wind Waker and Mario Sunshine and all that. So, I would read about a lot of, Japanese games and things that would interest me, and I've got a fraction of them. And I've definitely gone back and got some where it's like, oh, hey, this is pretty cheap. And something that I've had an interest in checking out, but didn't have the chance at the time. But it's not. I don't know whether I'd really say it's like collecting in any substantial sense. It's just kind of like, like Guillaume mentioned it already earlier, like just a sort of bit of opportunism of a sort that's just been biased towards, probably of all the systems, I'd say GameCube and DS are probably the big ones.
I did forget, I talked about it on the show once, that I had a near perfect collection of the Milton Bradley Microvision that I bought on eBay to talk about on the show, because it was like $8 for the system, and like the games were basically nothing. And then I guess it was the YouTuber Ashens did a video on them, and suddenly people were trying to buy them, so I just fucking turned around and sold them and made a shitload of money on it. I think I played it for all of like 20 minutes, and I was like, oh, the timing works out great. Sold. Get the fuck out. So for a very brief window, I may have had upwards of 90% of the games on one system. And then, which isn't that hard. I think there's only 10. But then I didn't. Then it got the fuck out of my house, and I bought a game I actually wanted to play with the proceeds. Arguably you could say I bought the Virtual Boy just for this purpose. Like, Especially now that I'm going to be the proud owner of the Virtual Boy shell, which, by the way, we're still months away from. That joke feels like it happened.
I love the way when you still go on like the Switch Online. I think they might finally be off the Switch Online like front page of Gabbo is coming. Gabbo is not. Well, he is, but we're not going to talk about it for a while.
Gabbo is coming eventually.
It's so bonkers that it's that far out. But I guess it's just because the physical shells, the lead time on it is that long. We have to wait that long with the software, which again is I mean, everything is very concrete on that you are not going to be able to play those games in 2D, which I think is, a mistake, frankly, for just making it something that people might want to actually engage with. I mean, look, they've done the thing by having the cardboard cheaper option is there. So that's something. At least it's not. We're only going to try and sell the 100. Is it $100 in America?
Something like that. Yeah.
I think it's like £67 over here. The kind of full price shell of it. So they've done something in that regard, but still, it just it seems misguided. But I get it from the point of view of like this is probably the only way that they could justify such a on its face uneconomic proposition. Where it's like, well, we're going to sell this thing. And that's how it's somehow going to sort of make sense. But it is going to limit how many people actually end up playing with those games.
I fully endorse the no, you must play it in 3D looking through these fucking goggles, you absolute fool. I like the, what's the best way of putting it? I like the commitment to the bit, and the bit being, this is a terrible idea and we're going to stick to it. I like weird. What can I say? I will say, I thought about this. There's going to be a bit of, I wonder what is going to be the best hardware to play those Virtual Boy games on, because on the one hand, if you're going to be sticking your eyes that close to the screen, and given the nature of Virtual Boy graphics, I would have thought the more sort of solid, deep kind of black display of the OLED model would be a big advantage, right? Over Switch 2 or the original Switch, right? So you'd say, but there is one other wrinkle. And I don't know whether you can shed any light on this, James, but from what I've heard in the past about Virtual Boy, it was a bit odd in that it updated at 50 hertz. Yeah.
So does that mean that it's going to be a bit odd on the other Switch platform, the pre-Switch 2, because Switch 2 has the VRR, it has the variable refresh rate, so it could display 50 hertz smoothly, accurately, right, without any kind of frame duplication or anything that would create stutters. Whereas I would imagine perhaps that might be a problem on the Switch 1 family of systems.
Maybe it'll be smoother than the Virtual Boy experience. It's the Virtual Boy Plus.
Yeah, we just have NTSC speed up, and it's just like, see you play complete Terror Boxer now, you idiot. You can't
Terror Boxer is hard as fuck as it is.
As it is, exactly. Those just imagine if it's extra fast now. Just
Terror Boxer is a fucking pain in the ass under normal circumstances. Oh my god. Gross. Yeah, so Virtual Boy is the answer to this question for everybody. You should go buy a Virtual Boy right now, and every game you can get your hands on. Is that going to be completely obsolete in roughly 3 minutes? Yeah, I don't care. Go do it.
It's kind of interesting. It's an interesting, considering we need to take from this what we can. It will be a somewhat intriguing kind of experiment of what that does to the values. You know what I mean? Does it absolutely tonk them, or does it, kind of get people more aware and interested in what the Virtual Boy actually was, rather than this approximation of it? I have no idea. I would assume in the main, it would just, really, especially something like Wario Land, maybe, where people actually want to play that game, and that's some of what gives it value. It's going to drive it down, having the opportunity to do it another way. But there is a very peculiar sort of physical experience, the Virtual Boy, from everything I've ever heard, with those spinning mirrors or whatever they do that display. It will be very much an imperfect recreation of that.
Oh yeah, but like in a way that makes the joke better. Like the fact that it's going to be an imperfect recreation adds to the joke, the absolute silliness of this entire experience. Like if it was a perfect recreation, that would be like, oh, that's kind of impressive. They did that, but it wouldn't be funny. The fact that you're going to pay $100 to have a suboptimal experience anyway is very funny. And I am prepared to be the butt of that joke. I will deal with it. Like you can't, this is, if I was living with someone right now, they would be able to say, hey, this is not a sound financial decision for our household. And I could look at them and go, why don't you love me? But I'm not. So I can do that to myself and look myself in the mirror as I'm holding it and say, why don't you love me?
Love me for who I am. That's right. What you should say.
Love me for the monster I am.
Dear me. I mean, in terms of the question of like being done with the system, that's the real outlier nature of this Virtual Boy collection coming to Switch Online. It is such a huge chunk of everything that was ever available for it.
Give me Waterworld.
Everything else can't that's on Switch Online can't come anywhere near that close, can it?
No,
as we already mentioned, for various reasons, economic.
Not unless we get a Pokemon Mini online. Like that's the only thing.
There's very few things that could even enter the conversation of like you could have such a huge chunk of what was ever available for it. And, cause, we talk about GBA, the huge amount of important third party games that are never going to show up for that service. And that's with Virtual Boy, obviously there weren't that many, third party games, but like we've already got more third party games confirmed for Virtual Boy than there are on the GBA service. Like what kind of fucked up world we live in? But that's hardly the only aspect of that one could say that about, a relatively piffling one at that, but it's still pretty bloody bizarre.
It's this very stupid. I mean, I guess companies, when Nintendo's like, hey, we're going to release Virtual Boy stuff, you own some Virtual Boy games, they're like, well, there's no way we're going to be able to sell that shit any other way.
No,
you can have the
opportunity cost zero, isn't it? That's the point. It's like, you can put the Aria of Sorrow in a collection. You can't put, could Jack Brothers go in a Mega 10 collection? It's just, yeah.
It's just huge fuck it energy is where we're at on this one. Just like, whatever, fuck it. You can have it. God. All right, we need to do another email. Guillaume, would you read the next email from Daniel?
Sure. Daniel writes, good day, RFN men of fine breeding. So ages ago, I picked up a copy of Ni no Kuni on the DS as part of some wild dream I had where I would learn Japanese enough to read and play some games that never got localized. That never happened. But what did happen was some kind folks translated the DS version and finally playing it on my 3DS with the translation patch, thanks to the end result of spilling some homebrew on my 3DS and being able to play. I've played the console version before and did enjoy it, but as with most level 5 games, it always seems to have one or two things that just make it kind of frustrating. The DS version, though, is fantastic. The combat feels like it's right out of a 32-bit JRPG. The backgrounds look great for a DS game, and it still has most of the story beats. There are some differences from what I know. Honestly, it feels like this is the superior version of the game and doesn't have a lot of the minor quibbles I had with the console version. So question, what are some other games out there where the handheld version or just version ported to a less powerful system is the better version to play? Stuff like where Final Fantasy XV Pocket Edition is better than the main version, just because it's over sooner. Also, not much talking about stuff just ported to stuff like Steam Deck or Switch, but stuff that was ported to lesser systems, and that version is the best way to play it. Anyway, keep up all the bonzo work, you guys, and peace out. I apologize, Daniel. Anyway.
It's fine. It's fine. People don't send emails to us thinking we can read.
Yeah, no, that's true. I kind of think that maybe my reading of this question is skewed by the fact that I grew up with a Game Boy, and so how dare you say that the Game Boy is inferior to, the NES or the Super NES? I think I could fool myself into thinking, I did for a long time fool myself into thinking that the Mega Man games on Game Boy were, just as good as the NES games. They were not, for the most part. And I haven't revisited DuckTales on the Game Boy in a long, long time. But I think that at least for a certain period of time, I probably believe that was just as good as the NES game, and perhaps even better, because it's a little bit shorter. Like, you can just get through it in, 20 minutes, and then you're done, and you're happy, or you just go through it again.
I'm trying to think, like, what games really work, because, like, I would say that we're going to have to exclude, like, they ported the Super Nintendo game to the GBA later, and they made that better. Yeah. It's got to be like this.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time they weren't better, but maybe there was stuff that had extra content, like, so you could say that. But
I think there's definitely, I was just thinking that there is likely a point where the handheld Tony Hawk games became better than the console games. 100%.
Right. Like the games kept getting more and more mediocre in console, but on the translated to the GBA or whatever, it just felt like this is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, they were still all being done by Vicarious Visions, right, all the way through. Like, I think probably around maybe the Pro Skater 4 Underground era kind of thing, like 2000. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at a Wikipedia, like 2002, 2003.
So basically, as the amount of Bam Margera increased, the quality of the experience decreased. Is that what you're telling me?
It's probably more the amount of codec increased, I would think.
Oh, okay. I was
we
wondering
have to keep pushing these things out.
I was wondering if it was Wii Man content that really started to push as it became more Jackass oriented and less just like skating.
Yeah. More moving towards that BMX XXX singularity. Is that what you mean?
The BMX XXX experience. Yes.
The thing that pops up to mind for me is not actually like the same game ported to a lesser system. It's more like a situation. Actually, they all involve Capcom. It seems. I'm not sure why, but Dark Void was supposed to be this big hyped PS3 360 game from published by Capcom. It sucked, apparently, but there was this DSiWare a game called Dark Void Zero, I think, and that turned out to be pretty good. It was just like this very simple three level 2D action game, but it was fine. It was just like, it was the promotional release, for the bigger game that was coming, but it turned out to be the only good thing about that whole franchise, quote unquote. And the same thing kind of with the new the 360 release of Bionic Commando, where they were making this full 3D Bionic Commando game. It was like this new thing. It was based on anyway, like it was a 3D game in that franchise. Turned out to not be all that great, but to promote that, they basically remade the NES game Bionic Commando, but for XBLA and the PlayStation 3, whatever the service was called. And again, like, people ended up loving that a whole lot more than they did that 3D game that didn't really go anywhere. But then they made a sequel to that 2D, remake, and that didn't really go anywhere either. People didn't. Yeah,
was it Rearmed and then Rearmed 2? Yeah, for the kind of side-scrolling ones. Yeah, which stayed on the same hardware, but obviously with a retro kind of gameplay.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say the licensed games, obviously, they were a huge kind of source of this over the years, right? Where it's like, okay, we got to have it on everything, and so it might. How much of it is like a port per se of a game on a console might be debatable, because it is just like, no, they did it on everything, because they were just trying to reach as many different demographics as possible while hitching their wagon to a particular film coming out, or just a major licensed character. So there used to be a pretty consistent pipeline of this kind of stuff, when licensed games worked that way through once Game Boy kind of popularized portable gaming at the same time that the console business was thriving. It just kind of kept happening again and again and again. Now obviously a lot of licensed games just left a big amount to be desired in general, right? Like, it was just, none of the versions might have been that good. So that you had that kind of problem. But I think in some cases, and maybe it was more, a little bit like what Guillaume already talked about with those Capcom ones, where it might be like, okay, they had an idea for trying to make a particular character's like abilities or whatever work in 3D that didn't work out as well, but a side-scrolling game around about the same time, might have worked out much better, and so sometimes those games like did review a bit better and people might have enjoyed them more. I think there was, I think maybe the main version of this was okay as well, but I never played it. But I remember Johnny talked about the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. I want to say it was Shattered Dimensions, but I could be wrong, because again, there were a lot of Spider-Man games with similar subtitles.
Yeah.
In the late aughts or whatever, where it was kind of a
Maguire movies.
It was like, I don't know whether it was post... It was post Spider-Man 3, I think. I don't know how directly it linked into any of the films at that point, but it was a little bit kind of working that kind of Spider-Verse angle before the Sony Spider-Verse movie existed, because we had the various different kind of incarnations of Spider-Man. At a certain point, I think, got involved, but it was basically a combat-driven Metroid-ish kind of game, which is something that got a lot more commonplace over the years. It was a little bit more different back then. But that, I think reviewed quite well. Johnny liked it. I ended up playing it, and it was kind of an interesting kind of game. Again, was it that much better than the other? I don't know, because I don't think that was meant to be altogether bad or anything. But certainly if of a gamers of a certain taste, right? That like, kind of classic, Metroid style games or whatever. It had a hook there, that I'm sure the regular game, couldn't quite kind of offer. But of course, you also had, outside of licensed games, you did have these situations where, people, major publishers, third party publishers would almost treat it like that in terms of, we've got to get this everywhere, so Ubisoft would be a good example for some of this kind of thing, right? Where like your Prince of Persia, you'd get like bespoke games or adaptations on DS and stuff. Well, and again, were they better though? Probably not, because I think those games were generally kind of well thought of, around about that time in the aughts or whatever.
Same with, like, I was thinking of Rayman 3, like it was a 3D platformer in the GameCube, but there was a Rayman 3 on the GBA, and both were good, but maybe you preferred the GBA one just because it's 2D.
Rayman did a lot of that. There was like a version on everything, so you ended up with weird, like, here's the Game Boy port, here's the DS port, here's that's based on the N64 port, and it's like, what the fuck is this thing's lifespan?
I'm trying to remember whether it was some kind of something I read about the history of Ninja 5.0 that I think at one point that game was going to be like, it was some kind of, twist on a different game that was being developed separately. It was going to be like the 2D handheld companion to that, and then that game never came out, and so Ninja 5.0 was just this weird sort of project that ended up standing on its own, and did get released, but in vanishingly small quantities, and became one of these things that was really hard to get for GBA, legit.
There's the Quest game for Game Boy, which is just a generic JRPG, so definitely better than Quest 64. But that's bad company to be keeping.
Yeah, the one I just looked up here is So from 2004, Astro Boy Omega Factor for the GBA. That's a fantastic game, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah.
But they also released on the very same date, they released Astro Boy for the PS2, and it was garbage. Astro Boy on the PS2 got a 54. Astro Boy Omega Factor got 85.
And that was Sega had the license, but in the case of the GBA game, it was developed by Treasure. You know, and they did a pretty good job with it. I played the console game. I forgot that it existed, but there you go.
They're the even worse company than Quest, though. But same two systems, Game Boy Color and the N64. There is a Gex for the Game Boy Color. It is bad. I want to be clear. It's bad. But you know what it doesn't have? It doesn't have Joe Piscopo. It does have platforming that is 2D, which helps a lot. Is it a good game? No. It's ambitious for a Game Boy Color game, but it is not good. But it's not Gex 64. And so in that, it is an improvement. It does feel like a lot of times you're looking at, well, it's a not as bad game as the more ambitious, larger game than, oh, this one really, I mean, you can say like Tetris if you want, Game Boy Tetris versus NES Tetris. Stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking about like these games came out at the same time, were meant to be the same game, even though they're not, like Gex is your answer, but I want to be clear. I'm not saying any of the games involved are good. They are not.
You're saying Gex is the solution.
Yeah, go play Gex on the Game Boy, then go play Gex 64, and write up an essay comparing the two and submit it to your local newspaper's op-ed section.
Yep, it's a crime is a disease, Gex is the cure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, no, because criminals will just think about their life in greater detail.
Just despair.
The ennui that will beset them as they proceed through their second Gex game will take away their motivation to crime. Gex
I never thought, actually, again, a similar one in terms of, you know, a publisher doing the whole kind of let's get this out on multiple different, you know, versions at the same time, you know, almost like a licensed game, even though it's very much theirs. Goemon. Now, there was a reboot of Goemon that Konami did, I think, in the early, like, aught somewhere, where it was like New Age Goemon or something, where they kind of redesigned the characters to be more kind of a specific type of anime kind of bent. I think this might be the one where Abisamaru is a cute girl, you know,
sure.
Instead. Like, you know, but I think there was probably a PS1 and a GBA game, and I'm pretty sure the GBA game is meant to be quite a bit better than the PS1 game in that case. Not necessarily like among the better games in the series overall, but I think it's significantly kind of preferred. But again, some of that kind of, especially in that era, you know, 3D, 2D, sometimes side-scrolling, just because it was more figured out, you know, it's not side-scrolling kind of game design. The odds kind of favoured it turning out better in some cases. And that would actually be a decent answer to the prior question for me, actually. I ended up getting quite a lot of Goemon games across various Nintendo platforms. And again, similar to what Daniel started this question with, in terms of having to rely on like online translations and stuff to get through it, because some of them are pretty text heavy if you're trying to play through the Japanese versions. But again, did I ever reach a point where I was like, I've got to have every Goemon game on Nintendo hardware or beyond or anything like that? No, I just kind of I think I finished off with the DS game that didn't get localized. And was like, no, I'm good. I've played a lot of them now. I've enjoyed them, and it's a cool series. Kind of shame that it seems to be both permanently dead and yet also like, no, we can't be bothered to reissue anything either. It is a shame.
All right, we ready to move on?
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind anymore.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, other than Mario Tennis or Mario Golf, which is, again, not this example of a downgrade.
I don't think it's... Yeah, I think that's a good example. They looked at what that system could do. That's actually a great example. They wanted to release on both the Nintendo's home console and Nintendo's portable at the time, either the N64 and the Game Boy Color or the GameCube and the GBA, and recognized the limitations of the handheld hardware and said, well, let's make a different style of game in order to better meet that. I think that's a great example. Play to the strengths of that system.
And well, but there's one aspect of it that's very different, I think, than what we generally talked about with these licensed games, and so is the idea that it could actually complement the other version.
Yeah, exactly.
That you would actually, the handheld version, you can kind of spend more time grinding, building up your own, customizable kind of character. And then you take it onto the console to play against your friends who, obviously everyone has Game Boys. Everyone is all playing Mario Tennis or golf at some point. And this is all we're doing. And we're all leveling up our characters. And then we battle, do it all at the same time on the TV. Bit far-fetched, sure. But theoretically, they could complement each other rather than just being, an alternative, that you would only have one or the other.
That's a good point. Like, these are games that ultimately are meant to be played together as a unit, but that probably also facilitated let's focus on what they're good at. All right, let's do one more email. I'll do it because it needs a preface. Games Gakpot Gones writes a whole bunch of fucking bullshit about Longindaman. So much bullshit. I cannot give you an idea of how much there is. Suffice to say, there are many paragraphs of Longindaman fanfiction that are written here in an attempt to establish a canonical parallel universe in which all of us are replaced with a doppelganger with a slightly changed spelling of our name to create weird mouthfuls of names to read. I'm not going to subject you to think 6 paragraphs of this bullshit. We're going to hop right down to the question. Wow. Sorry. You should be. Sometimes when you're preaching the cosmic gospel, you lose yourself in a bit. I always try to stay on topic. Anyway, you wanted an email question, so I figured I'd oblige. I was recently watching Vayome, again, one of this parallel universe, singular letter replacement doppelgangers, stream Rune Factory Frontier Guardians of Azuma, and I noted how bland the fishing minigame was in comparison to the high-octane version in Ys. Which Ys? So that got me thinking, what do you podcast hosts from an imperfect paradise consider the best minigames or kinds of minigames in, parenthetically, larger games? My favorite is Tiger Tiger from Xenoblade 2. It's so much easier than Picross. Snow, in this dimension, we only experience the glory of the pink mist.
Wow.
Yeah. Again, there was so much bullshit. It's impenetrable degrees. It would have been impossible for any of us to successfully read on this show. That Iggy's Wreckin' Balls segment from earlier in the episode, stretch that out for like 40 minutes of us trying to get through that email. That's what you're up against. I did you a solid here. So, minigames in a larger game that are actually like really fun to play and enjoyable. I mean, it feels like Sakurai tried to jam as many of them into this Kirby Air Riders thing as he possibly could. He does like to do that. Like, here's 9 other mini modes that you can play. Kirby in general does a lot of that. Like, I remember really enjoying the Kirby, I mean, it's not much of a game, but the one where you do the quick draw on Kirby's Adventure as a kid. Now, as an adult, would I think that's fun? No, because 1, my reaction time is probably not as fast, and 2, there's really not that much to it. But like that kind of stuff, like that series has an absolute shitload of it.
Return to Dreamland had some kind of fun mini games on Wii. Obviously it was a proper Kirby side-scrolling platform adventure. Very much patterned on the NES Kirby's Adventure, but bringing it up to date for that sort of side-scrolling revival that you had on Wii. But because it was, very multiplayer focused, it's like, oh, let's have a bunch of like mini games to go with it. And there was like this target practice one where like Kirby's got like his ninja powers or whatever, doing throwing stars and stuff like that. That was a fun little diversion. I mean, the regular game was pretty good. It's not like, oh, this is more fun than the regular game or anything. But for that sort of thing, it was like relatively solid.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, okay, if I say Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, can we consider that the overall actual game is the haggling and the purchasing of the minigames, and then the minigames that you purchase are minigames? Or is it just a kind of a really fucking weird collection of minigames where there's no actual overall gameplay to speak of? Anyway, I would say Rusty's Real Deal Baseball, I guess. But that's probably cheating.
Negotiating is the main game in that one.
Yeah.
Alternatively, negotiating could be the mini game, and I think that's actually pretty compelling.
Also, yes, just reverse it. The main game is just a bunch of mini games, but the way that you acquire them by haggling is a mini game in itself. Yeah, sure. And it's pretty well done. Like you feel like you've got a lot at stake there. You want to maximize your haggling, I suppose. You wouldn't want to overpay for a bunch of minigames.
I'm trying to think of a good example of one I really actually liked, and it definitely wasn't fucking Tiger. Jesus Christ.
I really hate minigames in general, especially like I keep failing to finish Final Fantasy VII. Like every time I hit the overworld, and like it seems like the only options you have are to go to various minigames, or it's like some sort of like hot and cold kind of digging game that I haven't quite figured out because it's boring. And then there's like that kind of, I don't know, you're trying to take on a tower or defend a tower or something, or a base. Anyway, and I haven't figured that out either. And then I learned much later, after I had long given up on the game, that actually if you lose that minigame, you get better rewards for it than if you win it. And so I could have just failed that minigame, not really, worried too much about it, and it probably would have been better. And then I could have gone on to play the actual freaking RPG that it's supposed to be.
It's quite a common thread with Final Fantasy, right? Like there's the card game that they came up with.
Some people love that. I'm sure that would be some people's answer right away, like triple triads or whatever it's called. That's been a theme. Like some people will be like, "Oh yeah, I spent so much time playing that card game," and that couldn't be me.
Yeah, like triple triad is fine, but like I got good at it, and then it really wasn't that much, because like it's all barely based on how good your deck is, and at some point it's just too good. And 95% of the NPCs you encounter don't have good decks, and you just stomp them. At which point it's not very much fun anymore. I mean, the Yakuza series has so many mini games you could choose from.
I was going to say that's kind of the obvious answer also for this question.
And like, it's got arcade games, it's got, actual like physical games, it's got weird shit like bowling, it's got the weird dating sim games and a bunch of them that can be fun, it's got dance stuff. Like, it's all over the map, and not all of it's good. I want to be clear, a lot of it's not good, but by sheer volume, there's just so fucking much of it that you just kind of get caught up in even the stuff that's not awesome.
And it's mostly optional, but it will give you rewards for the main game.
Yeah.
So,
You
do have an incentive to stick with it. But if you really hate batting cages, you don't have to go. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was kind of a trend almost in JRPGs, right? Because I just think like Final Fantasy games, really starting with Final Fantasy VII, started just being jam packed with mini games. Like I remember the chocobo racing was what I really liked in Final Fantasy VII. I thought that was really cool. But
the Gold Saucer in general is very Yakuza-esque in a lot of ways.
Yep.
God, I feel like I'm missing some really obvious shit.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's perfectly in the spirit of the question because, I mean, yeah, there's a single player element to this game, but it's very multiplayer driven. So you could argue, whether it's quite the same as like a little, game nested in a bloody great RPG, the way that Tiger is in Xenoblade 2. But, with the original Monkey Ball on GameCube, Monkey Fight, was the game. Basically, among my friends, it was just Monkey, all the other. I mean, there was some Monkey Bowling played, which permanently burned the spear announcement in my brain.
God,
that Monkey Ball announcer just he has never left me. But mostly it was just put us in the little arenas punching the shit out of each other. That was, kind of really outsized kind of influence on how much we played in that case. That was pretty great. I guess a game that I've never played in its mini game context, but I kind of have to say it because I did really like the version of it I played, Geometry Wars. That started as a mini game in which racing game? Is it Project Gotham Racing or something?
Yeah, I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I played the Wii game and really, really liked that. Galaxies, that was, and there was a DS game. It probably wasn't better, to address the previous question, because I don't think it ran at as good a frame rate. It could have as
30,
many.
It was 30, I believe, yeah.
It couldn't have as many enemies on screen at the same time, which is, pretty important to a Geometry Wars type of scenario. But Wii game, very, very enjoyable. And yeah, if it hadn't been for that mini game, we wouldn't have had that. And quite a lot of other dual stick shooters, kind of got going as a result of that on the download kind of platforms in the years hence.
Trying to think of anything else. We talked about card games. There's a million of them. The Pokemon Stadium games had some weird minigame shit, but those games feel like they're more like a smorgasbord of games. Oh, it's Tekken. It's Tekken with all its weird shit in there.
Tekken Bowling. Yep.
Tekken Bowling, Tekken Ball. The Tekken Tag Tournament 2 on Wii U with the weird Nintendo mode. Tekken has so much weird bullshit in it. It does. That is there's something in there for you. Oh yeah, it revels in its weirdness.
Yep.
We talked about Tekken last week and Itagaki's weird fuck Tekken approach to PR, but at the same time, Harada is also a weirdo who puts weird shit in his video games. It's just not beach volleyball. He doesn't make a whole game out of it. He makes Tekken Ball, which is also weird and uncomfortable and strange, but in a different, less sexual, more just confusing sort of way. I didn't say non-sexual, I said less sexual. My name was on the masthead. All right.
It was not the question. I'll just say quickly that in Mario Party, none of the minigames are good, and no one's having a good time.
No.
That's it.
No, it's bad.
One I can think of that's quite unique that there's something that did non-trivially make me more inclined to play the game, and yet I have never played the game, is Resident Evil Revelations 2 has a mini game in it where I don't have a great grasp of all the people from Resident Evil, but I think it's Barry is in that game.
He is.
Burton.
Yeah.
And I think when it came to Switch, maybe they added a mini game where it's a recreation of Ghosts and Goblins, but with Barry as Arthur. For a stage or two or something. So, I mean, that always was that would be fun. I mean, I played the first Revelations on 3DS. We've done a retroactive on it. I mean, it has its, good points and bad points, but I did enjoy it overall. So it's the kind of thing I've been, thinking I might get around to trying the sequel eventually, because again, it was reasonably well thought of. I believe it's one of those games that's had a sort of passive boost on Switch 2. Because it had the uncapped frame rate, which wasn't really hitting 60 back on Switch 1, but now it's much more capable of doing that. So maybe one day I'll get to play that little bit of Ghosts and Goblins reference.
Cool. All right, I think we're going to call email here. Again, email, send them, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Also, we want your retroactive recommendations. You have until the 20th at exactly 9 p.m. Eastern. Any email received after that time will not just be deleted. It will be ejected into the sun along with your hopes and dreams. So send those quickly, expediently. But on that, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to do some stuff, probably some new business, so stay tuned. We're back with we're going to say a small sampling of new business. John and I think, are both going to opt out this week. So we're gonna, unless John, something's happened in between now and when we did our planning earlier.
No, nothing has happened. No.
Okay. All right. I didn't want to speak for you.
I appreciate it, James. If anything, you're a gentleman.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
On the masthead, James, you are a gentleman. I was on the masthead, James. Yep. It's the two sides, really. So we're going to let Greg kick it off because he has some newer stuff to talk about, and we'll let him kick it off, though, with something that's not quite as new, but still pretty... Well, no, I don't know. Which one happened first?
Well, yeah, so I'll start with last weekend's global test ride, I believe, is the term that was
back
used.
The test punch. I don't care if it's relevant or not.
Yeah. The legacy of the test punch lives on in the test ride. And yeah, there'll be one going on this weekend ahead of, we're ahead of that just now. Obviously, by the time the episode comes out, I would imagine it'll be past, but seems like it's pretty much the same sort of stuff, some reasonable sort of blocks of time to play, mostly, the city trial kind of mode in Kirby Air Riders. There's, you can, in the time that your kind of options are available, you can go and do like the regular kind of air ride races by yourself on 3 tracks at least in the weekend. Last weekend when I was able to get some time in with it, and they have some lessons, just to get the basics down if you want to do that. Obviously, it's not terribly complicated game, but those are there. I guess it is. Even while it might not be that kind of complex, it is kind of different than, most games that have, racing mechanics. So there's some call to get people used to the idea of like, no, you only press a button when you want to slow down or whatever. But, so you can understand why it's there. But yeah, you could easily just gone pretty much straight to the city trial stuff and got on with it, and especially because so much of that is like messing about in that sky environment or whatever, rather than necessarily just like you straight away gotta know everything that you're doing. That would have been fine as well, but first of all, I guess the kind of obvious stuff, like graphically and all that kind of stuff, it is very kind of slick looking, glossy, impressive, in a way that, there's lots of ways in which these games are, substantially different, but it's kind of natural to compare it to Mario Kart World, and not so dissimilar from like, all the way back on the GameCube with the original Air Ride and Double Dash. Like, it's just flashier. That's, so it's just what it, emphasizes. And in this case, I guess, especially like in the races, the Air Ride mode, it doesn't have to worry so much about environments that can be, traversed in some sort of open world scenario or anything like that, like Mario Kart World has to. So it just, looks very kind of, eye-catching and good sensation of speed. I mean, you get, it's just messing around in the city trial mode. Sometimes you just get these weird things that happen, the kind of effects that take hold that might sort of apply to everyone that's playing at that particular moment, or maybe just the odd player, but like something just all of a sudden you're going insanely fast, like it's really difficult to control where you're going around, and the sensation of speed, in that and in the air ride mode can be, really quite like, oh wow, this is, sort of going some at this point. So, all that seems pretty solid. I guess the biggest thing for this, test ride scenario is just that you've got one thing. I don't know how this will apply, with regard to when the game actually launches, but something pretty kind of fundamental that you couldn't seem to do is just like, if you say, for instance, you could see someone on your friends list is playing in a city trial kind of game, you can't just kind of queue up to join them the way that you can in Mario Kart, for instance, which is something that I think has been part of like online Mario Kart experiences, at least going back to 3DS, Mario Kart 7. Where, it's just like, you could kind of pull up your friends list, you see someone's in a race. You might not be able to just, hop straight in, obviously, because if they're in one of these races, or, in this case, a city trial game where you've got like 5 minutes of messing about, like collecting things and beating people up or whatever else before you actually get down to the final event. In that case, so it's like, you're not necessarily going to be able to join in straight away and get to, but, if you kind of queue up and you're willing to wait, you'll be able to get in the next game, that they might play of City Trial, provided that there's like open spots. But it didn't seem like that was possible. Now, of course, like they were pushing, in the Sakurai's broadcasts, and it was sort of accessible in this test event.
He got 7 more minutes.
Yeah, I feel like the 7 minutes is more like, that if you in lieu of actually watching all the many minutes of those two broadcasts,
2 hours.
You could just watch this, and a lot of that information that's actually important will be communicated to you. So yes, but with this kind of scenario, you've got this paddock, right? That he talked about, right? It's just like, okay, so it's a bit like the arena, like setting up an arena in Smash Brothers Online, but there's a little bit more to it, rather than just like a kind of a simple menu, really, with a little sort of drawing of an arena. Like, you've actually got like a waiting room with all that kind of an actual 3D representation of the characters in the paddock and all that. So they seem to put a certain amount of effort into that, but it doesn't really seem like it's a way for you to like party up with like a few other friends and then go into a city trial with random players together. It seems like it's like, okay, well, you could get together and kind of play as if you were playing locally. So like you could get together with so many friends and then, fill it out with CPUs from there, perhaps. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's kind of maximizing what you're looking for there, because it's for me, it's best when it's nice if you can pair up with a friend or two, and then you join up with the bigger pool of players from there. Like obviously stuff like Rocket League does that, right? If you played that, it's easy enough to party up first and then go into any mode that you like from there together. So, and even stuff, Nintendo stuff like Splatoon, for instance, if you're doing Salmon Run, it's pretty easy to kind of pair up with somebody and then fill in the rest of the crew with just, players from the general player pool online. And then, you can keep going like that as many times as you like, or, pairing up for the rank battle modes, your Rainmakers and so forth. So, these are features that you've seen elsewhere, in Nintendo games and non-Nintendo games on their platforms. I'm not sure. Like I said, again, this is obviously it's a test event. I don't know if it's got, if this is how everything's going to work, or if they're going to add things in later after launch. Because, if you think of Mario Kart mentioned earlier, like with Mario Kart World, they added in the ability to sort of join a friend who's playing a knockout tour game, which is a longer form kind of race, but because it's essentially a whole bunch of tracks stitched together, so they didn't have that at launch, but they added it later. Could that be something that happens with Kirby? I'm not sure, but I do feel like these are important elements, because the lasting appeal of this game surely is likely to lie with the online kind of community aspects, right? It's just, one thing for all of Sakurai's many details that he wanted to share over, the better part of 2 hours or whatever it was, but putting the two broadcasts together. I think basically what we're to understand is there's 18 tracks in the game, and 9 of them are the GameCube ones, kind of, prettied up, for the new game. It's not many, but certainly by, the kind of standard set by Mario Kart, but presumably plenty of other racing games, that just the kind of racing aspect is not necessarily going to have a huge, kind of life to it. It's another interesting detail that he shared in that one direct, the second of the two, I believe, was that the time attack mode would not have online leaderboards. And again, it seems quite obvious this is, a choice rather than just, we can't be bothered to implement them. But I'm not sure it's a necessarily a wise choice, in the sense that, that might have been some other aspect that might get people to engage with that element of the game. Because while I can understand perhaps from the point of view of like, it's not necessarily that great just having a leaderboard where it's like, oh good, I'm, number 14,025 on this, leaderboard or whatever, without any kind of greater context or anything. What does that really do for you? What does that enable you to do? It's just like, there's lots of people that are better than me at this, I'll just leave it. But, there are ways you can try and make it more, kind of engaging for people to want to come back and do, to get better, make better times, in terms of, obviously Mario Kart often has like developer ghost times or whatever to beat, but, friends, obviously, friend leaderboards, friends ghosts, that's another thing. And also some kind of broader contextualization of, where are you on like a distribution curve of all the best, what sort of percentile are you in, for a particular kind of, time trial scenario. Those things can make it a bit more interesting. I remember, was it Mario Maker 2? Their online kind of events where they'd have a challenge, a level that they built for you to do. And then, if you could get in the top whatever percent for that level, that had been made, you got, how quickly you could get to the end, you'd get like some, I can't remember, like a gold medal or something, whatever it was. It's been too long for me to remember exactly what it was. It doesn't really matter. It's just, some sort of, you didn't have to be at the very top of the leaderboard or anything to feel like you accomplished something. Just, have a relative goal and set it there and see if, people can reach it. There are other ways to kind of take a time attack or something like that, to take leaderboards and get people to engage with them, rather than just, the raw numbers. And I feel like the time attack, it just like Sakurai said, I just want it to be the purity of you, beating your own time, getting better. That's, I could understand that from a certain point of view, but, I do feel like it's just going to mean a lot. People will engage with that mode less than they might have done if you'd, sort of, incorporated incentives or contextualization into it in a more meaningful way. So you've got that aspect, and the fact that there's not that many tracks. This really does hinge on, people getting super into playing online, and in particular the city trial mode, which is front and center of this test ride event, right? So That's what it's going to come down to. Having played around with it a bit, I didn't play enough to really feel like again, like they're trying to have a bunch of weird different things happening, in different runs that are not just like the ending things where you can be one of a number of different events that you actually kind of end up playing, but also, the, events that can have your giant characters spawn and everybody rushes over to, try and beat them for bonuses and stuff. I mean, it's kind of, a necessary thing to a degree, I would have thought, in terms of, okay, we've got this fairly big space, a decent number of players, but not a huge number of players. We will force them together, or at least encourage them to group up together, essentially, at various points to actually keep it, so it isn't just a bunch of people kind of off exploring, picking up things without really interacting with each other and feeling like it's a meaningfully kind of, human player versus player kind of scenario at that point. So, yeah, it's interesting the different ways they come up with to try and smash people together and make them engage with each other, as well as I'm sure there's plenty of people who will need absolutely no encouragement and will just be out to grief people and screw them up, like whether the game wants them to or not. But not necessarily going to always be the case, especially I would say in an event like this where you don't even have to have bought the game or anything. It's a pretty deep player pool, presumably, of just people trying it out. When you get to the game, when it's, it's been out for a while and, some people have dropped off or whatever, that's a different proposition then in terms of like, how do you kind of keep it fun? Versus, maybe some like really experienced players that are well versed in how to screw other players over. That would be that's always an interesting thing for online games to have to grapple with. But for me, getting used to the mechanics and, seeing some of the things they were doing and all that, it feels good. It looks good. Some of the kind of end game scenarios I've mentioned, that's always it's a bit tricky in terms of how meaningfully are the things that you did and acquired, in that run up, do they really play out? And, especially as some of them can be very quick, it's, I guess it's not always going to feel like it really meaningfully built up to that, but there was some cool stuff. There's the fight that was shown in one of the directs against the sort of robot DDD, where everyone has to actually work together to take it down. That was pretty cool and pretty different, Unfortunately, in the time that I got that as the ending, event to a city trial, it did seem like 3 of the people involved in that event had absolutely no idea what was going on at all. Like, because basically the leaderboard at the end is who did how much damage to the boss. And like number 1 was something like 15,000, and then I was number 2 with like 14,000, and then the remaining players were like in the 300s or whatever. It's like, now it could be stat based as well, I guess, because that's the thing. Like you get like, stat buffs in the run up to it, and it's like maybe they didn't get offensive stat buffs or something. So maybe they're trying their best and it was just simply never going to happen. They were never going to do that much damage. But at that point, I guess you would say, well, why would you pick that game? But again, maybe they didn't really understand what it entailed because it's a trial and all that. So, right. Yeah, all these sorts of things are going to be a bit of an issue in terms of people getting used to it and the sort of scattershot nature of it and the unorthodox nature of it and all that. So there's definitely some fun elements of being here at the beginning when, people don't know exactly how everything works and it's a bit more kind of like freeform. But equally, there's some downsides to that as well, I guess. So you could say in that very particular kind of case. But yeah, I'll probably try and put a bit more time in at some point over the week in one of those windows in the weekend and see if I can just see a bit more of the different ending kind of events and things. You've got like a few ones that are based on race, how just a pretty normal race, but sometimes there's a little bit of a wrinkle, like the whole like wall of lasers thing, like that silly bit in the Resident Evil movie kind of plays out over the top of it, or, you know, I haven't seen like the top-down racing come up that was shown in the last broadcast or anything like that. So I'd like to see a little bit more, but really reviews are going to be, you know, a big part of this one in terms of, like I say, I think there's some justifiable reason a bit for all the, you know, I think one of the things that Sakurai was relatively effective in this, you know, the many minutes of video that he generated for it was the sense that it's got loads of stuff in it, which of course is true in a number of ways. But also, like, I'm not sure it necessarily will have that much of a lasting appeal. You can't really take that for granted, right? Especially if the kind of online element doesn't, like, land and persist with a player base. So, yeah, definitely reviews are going to be a significant part of, like, okay, you know, how enjoyable is some of this stuff in single player, but then also, yeah, how plausible is it that this thing is going to be able to foster, you know, really robust and kind of lastingly enjoyable kind of online scene? Again, not something that reviews can easily answer, you know, ahead of release by any means, but it's going to be the best assessment that you're going to get ahead of time, in terms of trying to decide, you know, what to, whether or not to buy it.
Yeah, I missed this one. I guess I'll take a shot at it the next round because I'm curious, but it seems like there's a lot in this game.
No, that's the thing. I mean, in many ways there is, and I think that was like the one of the more beneficial aspects, I guess, of the Sakurai, you know, garden hose approach of info dumping on his game. Is just that sense of like, oh, there's so many aspects to it, so many details, so, you know, all this kind of stuff, but you know, that doesn't always manifest itself in, you know, like, is it going to be lastingly engaging? You know, and that is your question that has to be answered. And you can't answer it by entirely or even substantially by playing, you know, this test ride event for all that long, you know, because you're only going to get a little bit of a sense of it, whether, you know, it definitely, I think, you know, the first hurdle is just that mechanically, even though it is kind of unorthodox, it has a satisfying kind of feel to it, you know, the way, and also the diversity that you can get with the city trial, where you can be quite rapidly like trading different vehicles, and they handle radically differently in some cases. You know, some of them can actually just pretty much turn on a dime. So the whole, like, you know, sort of slow down and kind of grind as you do the turn to build up speed thing almost just doesn't apply to them. Whereas other vehicles have got very big turning circles where that's a huge amount of their kind of handling. So, you know, there's definitely a lot to kind of get to grips with in that sense. And I'll be looking forward to putting a bit more time in and seeing more of that kind of stuff.
Cool. So what else have you been up to?
Well, yes, we had the release of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. And again, very much, you know, I was going to look at reviews for this in terms of how, you know, would it be worth picking up? Also, I guess it's worth mentioning, I did not play Three Hopes, the Fire Emblem Warriors sort of adaptation of Three Houses, as it were. So yeah, it has actually been, it's getting on for 6 years, isn't it? Since Age of Calamity?
Yeah, it was pre-pandemic.
It was like early 20, I believe, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost 6 years. That sneaks up on you, think of, especially because there was a decent sort of cadence for a little bit there of like, oh, I played Hyrule Warriors on Wii U, and then the 3DS game was really cheap at one point. I played it on the U3DS, so it worked and everything. And then I played the Fire Emblem Warriors on Switch, you know, so that was all within a relative, and Age of Calamity itself, of course. So like that was probably in the span of about 5 years or so, you know, 5 to 6, all that sort of stuff. And then, you know, in all this time, I haven't gone back to anything. But, you know, I've mentioned plenty of times that Age of Calamity, you know, it kind of had, there were some kind of plus points with it, like committing to a more consistent aesthetic and mechanics and stuff of, you know, actually being an adaptation of a specific Zelda game rather than drawing from absolutely everything. But it had some drawbacks in terms of the amount of variety it could have with characters and things, and the amount of kind of its own personality it could have. But probably most meaningfully, the technical stuff, right? The fact that it was shoehorning itself into that version of Hyrule and that aesthetic, but still having to do the Muso thing where there's all these characters, you know, all these enemies to kill on the screen at once, and, you know, bases to capture and bosses that show up and all this stuff. It couldn't really handle it all that well, could it? Technically, the original Switch there. I'm sure there's a significant performance bump, you know, passively for Age of Calamity if you're running it on Switch 2 now. But yeah, it always felt a little bit like it couldn't really quite get to where they wanted it to, where it's like, we want it to look and sound just like Breath of the Wild, but still have the Muso kind of chaos that you're there for, and that balance couldn't quite be struck. And I suppose that's really one of the things that was, as well as just going back to a Warriors game for the first time in quite some time, one of the things that appealed to me based on, you know, reading the reviews here for Age of Imprisonment is just the fact that on Switch 2, it can kind of do that. Basically, you know, the frame rate and the amount of on-screen stuff and all that is, you know, kind of solid. All the while, you know, it is very much based in the expanded kind of Tears of the Kingdom take on that version of Hyrule where we've got the depths and we've got the sky and all this kind of stuff. But, so, you know, a bit more variation in some of the places you can go and set battles and whatnot. But we can do it convincingly and, you know, and smoothly for gameplay purposes. So, yeah, I gave it a go. Have not played terribly deep into it, so there's not that much to say at this stage. I will say it's a little bit of a slow start. Somewhat, a little bit surprising that it's that, you know, kind of gentle in a way. I mean, I guess, yeah, I mean, I haven't played a Warriors game in a while. A lot of people might be similar. A lot of people might never have played a Warriors game. It might be, you know, just, I guess they're probably targeting people they think played Tears of the Kingdom, you know, back in 23, and it's like, oh well, they maybe they never bothered with any Muso games before, but it does seem a bit much. Like there was a point in which, you know, kind of you're in sort of in gameplay. Obviously, there's loads of cutscenes, right, and not just like cutscene video scenes, but also kind of like exposition stuff told through like hieroglyphics and text and voiceover and all that. But this is actually in mission where you're like at the beginning where you're kind of just with characters and you can control Zelda having arrived back in, you know, the antiquity of this version of Hyrule, and, you know, kind of running around and just having them talk while you get used to the, you know, just moving a character. And I was reminded of Pokemon Legend Z2A we've just talked about just recently. And of course, when we discuss that, it's like, well, you've got to remember with Pokemon, there's this feeling that it might, you know, be, you know, for very, very young players and it might be their first game and all that kind of stuff. But, you wouldn't have thought that would apply in quite the same way with, a Muso game, a Zelda spin-off. You know, would you? Again, if you've played, there isn't that much carryover between, you know, a proper Zelda game and a Muso game. They try, you know, with various sort of gimmicks, you know, working in zone eye devices now in this case, where, you know, before you had the Sheikah Slate powers and stuff, and various like elemental things and weapons and buffs and all this kind of stuff. Like they do try and, you know, kind of, incorporate all these various elements and make it feel like it's in the same world. But, you know, fundamentally, you know, the gameplay wise, obviously is, you know, utilizing a different set of skills. But still, you know, if you were somebody who'd played Tears of the Kingdom, and we're trying to start off this game. There shouldn't be anything in it that's particularly intimidating at all. So it seemed a bit oddly gentle, a bit oddly kind of proactive, shall we say, with its onboarding for playing this kind of game. But that doesn't take. It takes longer than I thought it would take, but it still doesn't take that long before you start kind of getting into the meat of it, as it were. I mean, really, definitely there's kind of, I think it says on my kind of file now, chapter 3, but really I guess it must be like the end of chapter 1 going into chapter 2, where it kind of really starts. You kind of get a major event from the narrative of Tears of the Kingdom, and it's like, okay, all right, now the game is really getting on with it. And in that, you actually get a glimpse at one of the novel elements of it that I can talk about, which is you've got this character, it was kind of teased pre-release, but obviously once the reviews happened, people are able to see it a lot. The stand-in for Link, right? You've got Link can't be here because he's somewhere else in time in this narrative. But we've got to have somebody in his place, right? So we've got a sort of robot Link. And the thing about robot Link is he's not just a robot Link. He is like Starscream from the Transformers, because he can turn into a jet. And that is like the big difference, I guess. One of the big differences in that in Age of Calamity, you had the divine beasts that you could have these huge, like, just Death Star in a bunch of, kind of armies all at once. Right?
And the frame rate at the same time.
Yeah, in speaking of things the Switch couldn't handle, it very much couldn't handle those sequences. And so, like, I guess the thing is, while that was very kind of embedded in the fiction of Breath of the Wild, those divine beasts were a major part of the story of Breath of the Wild, and it's, oh, cool, you get to control them and all that. It's like, in practice, it was very kind of lumbering, and just it tanked the performance, and I didn't really find that it was the huge, like, net positive for the game. What I've played are these, sort of transforming sequences so far. So you have, Robo-Link transforms into the jet, and then you get a bit of on-rail shooting. Now, is it elite on-rail shooting action? Well, I mean, it certainly wouldn't be in the first couple that you do. But, it kind of seems like it's a neat addition, relatively, that you get these, you can do some fun stuff, to scenarios in the sky, in this case, because you've got this whole sky region of Hyrule, but even in Tears of the Kingdom itself, it was a little bit like, well, you've only got a few little islands, and, how much, like, meaningful stuff do you really do up there? But yeah, for this, it's like, we can use it as a playground for on-rail shooter segments, and, for getting into a crazy boss fight with a Gleeok or whatever, the three-headed things. Like, that to me felt, and again, technically holds up a hell of a lot better than those Divine Beast sections did, and just felt like a fun change of pace and get some spectacle in, and like I said, whether there's enough in the design and the gameplay of those segments to hold up for like however many times they keep going back to this particular well, we'll have to see. But so far, I'd say that seems like even if it kind of feels more extraneous, than having something in those, a more kind of fan fiction-y than, having the Divine Beast be involved did. Gameplay wise, it's just, nice. So we'll see. There's, with these sorts of games, that I find it's best kind of, to take your time with it, because however much, they try and work into, there are some new elements here, combat wise, in terms of you've got these counter moves for like a specific kind of enemy attacks, like they kind of tip you off with a red kind of, glow that they're going to do some big attack that you're going to have to counter. And then it's like, oh, well, if it's an aerial counter, it's one kind of move. If it's a charge along the ground, it's a different kind of move. And they've got the elemental stuff in there. So, they've added some wrinkles on top of what they've had before in Hyrule Warriors and Warriors games in general. But it's never going to be that varied. It's never going to be that deep. That's not what these games are. So I think if you don't want it to be too repetitive, it's best to kind of keep coming back to it bit by bit, So it probably will be, quite a while before I see, the full length of, how it develops, the gameplay and the much promised addition to canon, that you'll be able to chisel in stone tablets for your grandchildren to read or whatever. I have serious doubts over whether that's really going to bring anything particularly rewarding or enjoyable in that regard. I can't say I was that bothered about the Tears of the Kingdom narrative anyway. It wasn't the most sort of richly kind of fleshed out thing in the first place, which I guess you could say leave space for it to be further explored, but I'm not that confident about that, but then I'm not that bothered about it either. Hopefully, if they could just make fun use out of the world for the scenarios and stuff, that's really what I'm kind of hoping for here.
Cool. All right. Guillaume.
Yeah. So I finished Donkey Kong Bananza. I returned it to the library, and unfortunately, I was really, I was positive when I talked about it last week, but it kind of fizzled out pretty quickly, I feel like I spent a lot of time playing that game and not a whole lot of time actually enjoying playing that game. It kind of set me for a brief moment into one of those existential, do I even like Nintendo games anymore? I probably do, but I feel like Donkey Kong Bananza gave me that same feeling that I got from Super Mario Odyssey, where it wasn't giving me kind of like the dopamine hit that I expect from completing a challenge in a Mario game, in a platformer. And in this game, in Donkey Kong Bananza, I think it's kind of like this weird combination of either there's not enough friction to getting a banana, for a lot of them, like you just, you echolocate one, it's that way, you just dig your run or, whatever it is, straight to that banana and you get it, and that's not especially rewarding. And then you've got other challenges that are perhaps, have a little bit more friction to them, but it's I don't know. It's not the right kind of friction. It's kind of like the irritating kind of friction. It's like itchy wool sweater kind of friction where I'm having a little bit more trouble pulling off what they're asking of me, but not in a good way. I'm kind of, because the controls are a little bit more in Donkey Kong Bananza are a little bit loose. I don't know how to explain exactly, but there's kind of like a lack of precision, I find, when you're controlling DK. A lot of it is from the fact that he will basically vault over or just, start climbing on basically anything, right? Sometimes I would have trouble just reading those stone tablets where I forget what the name of the guy is, the stone. Anyway, there are these stone tablets, and every time that you try to read a sign, sometimes I would just go at towards it a little bit too fast, and Donkey Kong would just vault over it. And it's okay, well, I meant to read that, but now I have to double back. And anyway, it was kind of messy that way, and that messiness is everywhere in the game. But at the same time, the game seems to account for that by not asking you to be super precise all the time, and doesn't really require you to be to have a very kind of it will forgive a lot of kind of poor timing on your part, or not really, heading in the right direction, doing exactly the right thing at the right time, by just the I don't know what I'm saying right now. For instance, the I forget what his name is, Void Kong. You've got 2 encounters against him, and both of them are pretty similar. And it's, like he's a pretty major part of this game. He's like, like the guy that you chase through the entire game for. And it's really, like, the encounter is really, there's not really that much to it. Like, he just sends these kind of waves of matter at you. Sometimes it's just going to be like it can send you dirt walls as much as it can send you like a wall of lava, and you have to deal with that, as you try to reach him and go punch him in the face. But a lot of times when he's attacking, like all you have to do is run towards him slightly diagonally, and you're going to be fine, And maybe like at some point there's going to be another type of barrier that is going to stand, and you're not going to be able to just go around it that simply. Well, you just jump over it. And then occasionally you might have to do something a little bit more elaborate. But like I found myself being very good at reaching him and punching him in the face. And you chase him like that for a while, and then it's over. And that kind of encounter just left me thinking like, well, okay, but was that it? Did I even do what I was supposed to do? It feels like it should have been more momentous, more, but it turns out to be kind of a nothing of an encounter. There's another boss where, it's in that world where there are enemies that have this carapace that can harden when it's in the sun, or conversely can harden when it's in the shade. And so you have to hit them, like you have to draw them into the light or out of the light into the shade to be able to kill them. And so the boss of that area had that gimmick where like it was this big thing with that carapace, and I assumed that you were meant to draw him into the light to get rid of his carapace, to make it soft so that you could punch through it and damage him. But instead what I did was that I took the snake form, which you get in that area actually, and I just jumped up to him because it was at the top of this monster that was kind of, a structure in itself. It's a moving one that can hit you, but it's very slow, so it was very easy to just jump up to him and start wailing on him right there. And sometimes he would swing something at me, but then like that snake has that ability to also slow down time. So I used that. And so his attacks were very easy to avoid. And so that whole encounter, which is like the final boss of that area, lasted less than a minute. And it just felt like I bypassed a whole part of that fight that should have happened. I should have maybe punched through like his big structure that he was controlling. And yeah, like it just, so again, like it gave me that feeling of, is that it? And yeah, that was it, I guess. And sometimes like a lot of the challenges also felt that way, not just like the boss fights, but there is like this, like there are this game's equivalent of the temples, basically, the more carefully crafted segments where you're going to have a challenge that's designed for you to use a very specific ability. Like even those I felt were a little bit like they could be bypassed in weird ways. In this case, like, so it was in that same world again, like it was dealing with the enemies with a carapace that's hard in the shade or in the sun. And so like initially you've got these enemies, you take their carapace, you use it to surf your way on these vines that hurt you if you try to step on them. But if you surf on them on this indestructible shell, you're fine. But the shell stops being indestructible when you step in the light. So the goal was to just go around the light that was moving on the vine, and so you kind of surf your way through. But there was clearly very quickly on the left a passage where you could go get like that hidden banana that's always in one of those challenge stages. And so I just went for it. And I very quickly, like, it was bathed in light, so I lost the shell that I was using to surf on. But because I had upgraded Donkey Kong so much, I kind of just powered through it, like every time, like there's not much of a downtime for when you get hit. Like you don't get to catch your breath for very long. Like immediately as you jump back, as you land back on the thing that hurt you, lava, vines, whatever, like you get hit again. But still, like I had enough health to just make it to the rest of the way to the banana, and so I got it. And then only much later on did I realize, like, okay, if I was supposed to go straight, and then there was like this other set of enemies that had the opposite shells. They had the shells that turn solid when they're in the light. So I was supposed to go all the way to the end of that path and switch surfboards basically, and then do the opposite. Instead of sticking to the shade, I stick to the light, I go get that hidden banana, and it would have been fine. But before I could even see that I had, what the puzzle was, I had already gotten the reward, because the game has decided that Donkey Kong needed an upgrade system. So yeah, like all that stuff just made the whole experience like mostly kind of. It felt like the game was asking me like to spend time in it without really forcing me to. I don't know. It felt like I spent time with the game, but not really. I didn't really spend time playing a game.
That's pretty deep.
Anyway, so I guess that's mostly what I wanted to say about Donkey Kong.
That's pretty deep, Gil.
Bananza. I don't know. Like and like clearly different experience that, than especially like James seems to really have enjoyed this game, and I don't doubt that, and I'm not trying to convince anyone that the game is no good, but like clearly this studio's games don't really gel with me. Like they don't give me what I play games for, I guess. And
it's too easy. Is it too easy or too repetitive or what?
Yeah, well, repetitive and maybe a little bit too easy, but it's perhaps not just the challenge, because I don't know. Like I was talking on Blue Sky, and Johnny actually was like, "Yeah, I didn't really feel Bananza either," and it was not really the toughness. Like there was more to the game. Like he beat the game, and then like he played more of it, and there were like more harder challenges, but they were just harder versions of stuff that he already didn't care doing before.
Yeah,
and he said that was not the issue. Turns out. So I don't know. Like I didn't keep playing the post game, so I don't know. But I feel like yeah, no, I don't know. The last week also, Greg, you described like the sequence where you figured out with the DLC this thing where, okay, like I'm trying to get as many points as I can with these bonuses. I get a bonus if I kill these enemies with my bare hands, but then or like without using a power up, basically, like without transforming.
Yeah, the point was that I had to crack the shell, like for it not to take ages. I had to crack the shell with whatever. By any means necessary, but I just had to kill them with the bare hands. That was
right.
So you just had to make sure you didn't swing like too many times and then kill it when you're just trying to get the armor off.
Right. So I feel like that sounds interesting. It sounds, tougher than what I feel has been my experience with the main game. But at the same time, I'm not sure I've been enjoying the combat and the movement in this game enough to even want to
Yeah,
I think this kind of challenge. Right? I don't think I would have been able to pull it off, actually.
I think that's what it's predicated on, the DLC, really, is just the idea of, you enjoy the character's locomotion and the skill set, and, you're putting it to the test in some, kind of somewhat different ways.
Yeah, I don't know. Like there were constant like little, and this studio is good at that. Like there's always like a kind of a new thing at some point that pops up, and it's like it's kind of delightful. But I found that it was short-lived. Like I enjoyed the first enemies that you encounter in that kind of fruit world. They're fun to punch. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. But eventually, like, you kind of get over it, and I found that, like, okay, and the game remains the same. Like, this is not transforming my experience with the game. How do I end this? I sound very down on the game because I've been bitching about it.
We can move on.
Yeah, I guess I could. Yes, this game sucks. I did not really enjoy it, so
I like it.
I feel like. Yeah, and I kind of could see it coming. That's the reason why I didn't just purchase the game. So I'm glad I got it for free at the library. Tokyo EDP. Nintendo EDP
days,
Tokyo. Yeah, my favorite game of theirs is still Super Mario 3D World, where there's like it's more of an obstacle course type of level design. And like the multiplayer plays a big part of it. Also, I just love playing this game with Karen, and like the something about their Super Mario Odyssey and this game, like they just don't hit for me. So,
well, I would say it may be, and this is no surprise. Maybe, the evidence, should any really be needed, that there is a legitimate tension to the kind of design philosophy that you've seen, I think, most strongly actually in the Zelda games, in Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, but that's also manifested itself in Odyssey and Bananza of like, oh, well, you can solve this however you like. And a lot of people like that about Zelda, especially, in Zelda, when, you'd had so many games in the Ocarina of Time mold where it's like, well, there's this item that I just got in the dungeon. I wonder how I will solve this puzzle. There was only ever going to be one way, to like, oh, I can come up with my own solution and I can do it my own way. And, I can, obviate the design of the intended design of the puzzle in a way of my own making. And that, coming into, something that isn't a Zelda game, and again, there's plenty of people that will like it for that, and there's elements of it that are enjoyable, but there are trade-offs also, right? That when you kind of design things in a way where people can kind of either intentionally or unintentionally, they might just blunder past the intended, kind of what you were describing with that, hedge maze or whatever, where you got to surf on the spikes. You can end up blundering past the intended sequence or design of the thing, or somebody, deliberately decides to, test a way they might be able to skip it or something like that. It may, especially for players of certain tastes, diminish the sense of reward and the sense of being in sync with the developers, the feeling of, what they're trying to ask you to do, and then eventually how to do it. And that kind of call and response type of relationship with the developers can be very, very satisfying at times, especially, when it can be something that's quite advanced. And it's like, oh God, do they really want me to do this? And then it's, oh God, they do. I'm thinking like the most difficult like pickups to get in like Zero Mission, where it's like they want me to, do the fucking shine spot thing across like 3 different rooms or what, like,
right.
Like, no, they did. It's not some insane thing I came up with. And actually the answer's far simpler. That is most often actually the case. That's what it normally is. But every now and again, it's like, no, I do know something about this. I know what they're thinking. I know what they want. And when you have this more kind of open and kind of, inclusive and creative approach, you lose some of that. That is a trade-off, and there's a lot of good things about it, but there are drawbacks, and it's not surprising that it's going to be, kind of limit how rewarding the experience can be for some players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't have much. I think I've said enough. Yeah.
I'm sorry you don't have any
James.
taste.
Oh,
I'm sorry you have no taste.
well.
That's. I'll keep you in my prayers. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about?
I maybe very quickly. Okay. So I as last week I mentioned I bought a whole bunch of Taito arcade games. They were on sale. Arcade Archive games, and but also I bought a couple of Taito Milestones collections, which are just the collections of those games. I was trying to. It was weird. Like there was like two sales that overlapped. The Taito Milestone collections were not on sale initially, and then they were. So I had already made the mistakes of buying individual titles that would ultimately they were in the Taito Milestones collections. So I've got a bunch of doubles. That kind of sucks. But they really didn't help me by naming games two different things as Arcade Archives and in the Taito Milestone collections. In Taito Milestones Collection 3, there's a game called Run Arc. That is Growl in North America. I did not have that info in front of me. I was on dekudeals.com. I was, and so I only had like the black on white description of what the games were on that collection. And so I ended up buying the game twice. So that kind of sucked. The Taito Milestones collections are interesting in that I've never seen something like this. They're really just, how do you call that? A shell or something? They are just the Arcade Archives titles, but you have to go through an additional menu to get to them. And so you've got the icons for the 10 games included in the collection, and you click on it, and then it's the exact same, Arcade Archives UI that and either love or hate. It is what it is. But there is no extra material. There's no context. There's not even, something as simple as what do you call that? Fuck me. Not the black bars, but what you would replace the black bars with.
The wallpaper or the borders, wallpaper, whatever, yeah.
You don't get borders. You don't get wallpaper. It's just, very bare bones.
It sounds quite a lot like the, perhaps not quite the same, but it was pretty similar. The Konami Anniversary Collection. So obviously you had Castlevania Anniversary Collection. You had Contra Anniversary Collection. Both of those were M2 things that had a bunch of console games in or whatever. The Konami Anniversary Collection was arcade games, mostly shoot 'em ups. And I think all the constituent games were basically just the hamster emulation of them. They did have 3 different borders of wallpaper, pretty much, but yeah, it was pretty much a shell with hamster emulation of arcade games in it. And Konami had that, for the company's anniversary rather than any specific game, that was represented in the collection, which is why it's been nice to see. Yeah, subsequently we got the Gradius Origins collection that came out this year, which covers quite a number of those games. The Gradius ones there, with the M2 kind of treatment, many more features, options, and robust emulation and all. And not the hamster emulation, the Arcade Archives is generally pretty solid, but it sounds like these Taito Milestones are basically very, very much in that mold.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily. So some of the titles you do get that menu where you can choose between Japanese or North American versions, but not all of them. And I'm not sure if you get that choice if you buy them separately as an arcade archive title. So we played Warrior Blade, Rastan Saga Episode 3. So this is like the third game in the Rastan series, I guess, but instead of being a 2D action game, it's a belt scroller. I mean, like, it's 2D, but you can move up and down on the you've got two axes of movement, basically. It's a beat 'em up, and it looks very good, and it looks like it was designed for like two screens. For Taito loved their very, very, very widescreen arcade games. It's pretty cool, but inexplicably, so the story scenes were mostly the screen. The text was in Japanese, with a very small English translation at the top of the screen, so it seemed to be some sort of bilingual ROM, but mostly Japanese. Occasionally you would hear an English voice, presumably your Conan the Barbarian, Rastan character, just going like something about force, I don't know. And then some other voice, which I think maybe were the enemies, which were in German.
Sure.
I believe. Yeah. And I have no idea if that's just how the game was originally, or like, I don't know which region this ROM is for. So it's all very confusing. Was it like an international release and they just decided that only the Germans would know what the bad guys are saying? Who knows? But it's very, very weird. And it's not the only game like this. Dead Connection is another game on this collection, and it's the first time, like, this is the first home release basically of Dead Connection. It's this weird one-screen shooter where you play as apparently bad guys. You're trying to eliminate other bad guys, but very clearly it's modeled after the characters and everything after mostly The Untouchables, Brian De Palma's movie. There are at least two of the characters, one of them very much looks like Kevin Costner, the other one very much like Andy Garcia. There's also Marlon Brando in there as the Godfather for good measure. The intro announces that this is a Taito film production, because we all associate Taito with like cinematic quality video game entertainment, of course. And it's kind of this cute little shooter where you just like run around and you pick up guns and you shoot at, like, okay, here you have to finish this. To finish this level, you have to kill like 70 enemies, 75, 80. But like the environments that you're in look like a party on top of a building in New York City, or here's the factory where they're packing whatever, probably drugs, or here's the like the like some sort of, not saloon because it's the wrong, maybe a speakeasy, I don't know. And there's a lot of interactive elements there. There's different things to shoot at, like in the kind of the factory setting. Like there's this switch that basically you can uncommand just coat the entire floor with fire because it drops like the thing that the crane is carrying. You just have to make sure not to be there when you shoot at it. Yeah, like there's tons of stuff. Like there's tons of cover that the enemies take. Like I think that there's one scene where it's basically maybe some sort of movie theater, I don't know, but you have to go, like if the enemies are up in the on the balcony, you have to go and climb, like take the stairs to the balcony to be able to shoot at them, because otherwise you're just shooting under them. Anyway, so that's probably like one of the neatest games in that collection. I would recommend people to check out the Dead Connection. But again, like it's the text on the screen is Japanese, but the voices are in English, and it's like this game was released at some point in North America. There is an English version of this, but it's not in this collection. I don't know why. so there's these little oddities there. The third game that we played a lot of is Bobble, which I never really played growing up. It seemed a little bit too old for me to be interested in it as a kid. But Karen and I played through it, and it's a lot of fun. I guess it's a classic that I've been wrong to ignore this whole time.
Yep.
Except that towards the end, it's very much towards the end, it's a little bit bullshit. If you can get, like, there are 2 levels, like, in the 90s that, like, we had to look up the solution because, like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I can believe it.
The main, like, the basically, like, you have to kill all these enemies in this one screen, and you shoot bubbles at them, you capture them in bubbles. Once they're in the bubble, you have to pop the bubble, but, like, it's a little bit, fiddly how you can pop it. Sometimes you kind of just push them a little bit before you can actually pop it. So it's a little bit, you have to get used to the controls a little bit. But also you can jump on your bubbles, sometimes. And so, like, you float up to go and reach enemies on the upper, platforms. But the rules will change from level to level. And, so you never really know what to expect. Sometimes your bubbles do rise. Sometimes they just, like, it seems like gravity is stronger and they just won't go anywhere, and you have to find an alternate way to make your way up. Some platforms, sometimes you'll be able to go through them, and other cases, like, you can't. Like the very last stage, I think level 99, you literally have to figure out that your way to this one enemy that seems to be completely encased in the wall is to go through the wall by the top. You have to go and fall from. You have to find the tile right next to the enemy. You have to fall down that, like, through the floor, and you have to shoot it. Anyway, like, it's a little bit messy, but it is a lot of fun. It does have a very repetitious tune that plays over and over for, like, the 40 minutes that it takes you to play through the 99 levels. I already knew that about the game, so we played it with, like, one volume, because otherwise I think I would have gone insane. But other than that, yeah, very, very fun game. So, the Taito Milestones collections, like, they're pretty cool, but you are just getting Arcade Archive releases, basically. And they're kind of expensive. I would wait for a sale, which is what I did. That's it.
Cool. All right. Well, on that, I've given you the email address a million times. You know what you need to do. So I'm just going to end the show. Greg, what's our music to get out of here?
First of all, Radio Trivia is back.
Oh, yes.
With the Talk Nintendo crossover annual tradition has been fulfilled. And I very much recommend you check that out. I actually got 2 games right. It's a rare thing these days I get anything right. I blame Switch. It's too many possibilities now. I can't narrow it down by system the way I used to. But no, it's been very fun to hear TWP and the Talk Nintendo guys doing that again. But yes, for our closing music, I felt like when this episode goes out, it'll probably be shortly after the second test ride event, shortly before the launch of Kirby Air Riders. So we should go with something related to that. And yes, we had the Checkonites a while back, which is for a particular track of the same name from the original game. So that we'd work the other side of it, the thing that is the subject of a lot of the test ride event, which is the City Trial, right? So here we've got the sort of remix of the City Trial theme from the original Kirby Air Ride, from Smash Bros. So yeah, it was very natural that this would happen given Sakurai's, kind of involvement in both things. Here you've got, pretty faithful to the original song, but it's not like live, orchestra or anything, but it's a bit of an improvement in instrument quality, bringing in a few other elements of other themes, just give it a bit more punch. So, yep, this should be nice preparation for what's to come.
Cool. All right. Well, and that. Oh, I can hear the rain now. Well,
yes, I spoke too soon, didn't I? Before we started the second segment.
That's fine. It's got like a homey vibe to it. We're good.
Oh, yeah. People know I'm actually in Britain now, don't you? People probably thinking I've been, taking the piss all these years. He's probably living in Bermuda or whatever. No, it's true. I am British.
Well, on that shocking revelation, it's time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.